Hello to my watercolor students. We are jumping into week 8. We are getting very close to the middle of the semester. Looking forward to seeing your latest submissions. I believe you guys have just finished turning in the Cubism project, and I haven't looked at them yet, but I will very soon. I wanted to talk about some things regarding your upcoming assignments. And here are some of the learning objectives for the week. And it's exciting actually to see that we are learning these techniques, building upon them. Eventually, you're going to have so much control over the works of art you are making, and that there are still several more technique-oriented projects before you guys start doing more individual-based projects. So I'm not going to go over these learning objectives individually here because you guys are actually going to look at the little module sections that give a little bit more depth. So for this little video, I just wanted to share with you a contemporary artist that I've been checking out and that I really enjoy his work. Let's see, we are going to talk about a contemporary artist. His name is Dima Ribis. He is based off of Russia, but he currently lives and works in New York. He is relatively young, at least from the work that I've been seeing and the things that I've been hearing about him. I don't have any concrete information of his biography. I mean, if you want to look him up, you may do so. Something about him, he's kind of like your everyday young person. They are into all of these different things happening currently. He likes music, he likes street art. I included a link of a website that talks about one of his exhibition shows. So check that out. Something that you noticed with this class is I like to talk about different artists. I like to talk about classical artists. I don't talk too much about contemporary artists, at least not yet. So this is the first one that I'm going to mention. When it came to the classical artists, we talked about Rembrandt. Did we talk about Rembrandt a little bit? We talked about J.M.W. Turner. We talked about Dürer. And so we're actually going to jump around a little bit and talk a little bit about more recent artists. And so you'll hear me use the word contemporary a lot. That basically means whatever is happening right now. Or the contemporary style, you can say it started around the 20s and up to now. So it's actually, it covers a large area. You could say a lot of the work from the 60s were influenced by that time, around the time in between wars. But there are so many pieces that were influenced by that particular time period. So, you know, you could count the last 60, 70 years up to 100 years as contemporary art. So all of these things that are happening right now or influenced by works up to this point in art history. So here is one of his examples. Follow me if you can. Watercolor, 105 times 155 centimeters. This was made in 2018. Hashtag Dima Ribis, hashtag underground aquarelka. What is that? I believe that aquarelka is what the artist defines as his own style. Aqua, you know, you could say it means water, but aquarelka, I'm not really exactly sure what that means. Maybe it's a Russian thing. I'm not too sure here. But if you're looking at this style, this work of art, he's working on a very large surface, 105 times 155 centimeters. That's a little bit bigger than the original Arches watercolor paper that we have. So I actually have that here. And it's really cool to have the artist, and that shows the dimension. So if you guys are already using this larger paper, I have it. Actually, I bought it in a package. 5 sheets. And these are expensive. So you can imagine that his work is bigger than this. Yeah, this is 56 by 76 centimeters, but he's working 105 centimeters, so it's actually way larger than this. It's like double. So something about contemporary art, or just artists in general, they work in a large scale. So I can tell you that right off the bat, the difference between, say, young artists and experienced artists is that the experienced artists, they work large simply because it creates more of an impact. Sometimes when we look at works of art that are relatively small, and a lot of students, they're comfortable working small. But if you want to push your art further, say that you are majoring in art. If you are a studio art major, you're gonna want to show people that you are making strong work, and that if you're working small and that you're working tiny, that looks like, it feels like student work. So you know, for you art majors, if you are planning to push yourself towards this direction, you know, work in a larger scale. You'll totally you'll totally feel the difference between working small and working large. And so when it comes to the subject matter, I am not even sure. It's so ambiguous. We have, and I'm talking about this work of art here, the Follow Me If You Can. And so that I am looking at the subject matter. I'm looking at the bunny running away from, it looks like someone maybe chasing the rabbit, someone wearing a dress, and that the person's wearing sneakers. Something about contemporary artists that I find very cool, it's very neat to see that a lot of the artists now are using so many of the techniques that the classical artists use. So we are looking at this example of one-point perspective where everything is leading towards the focal point, which is the very upper center of this work of art here, that there's this atmospheric perspective happening. In other words, the objects are a little bit closer to us, such as the bunny, have a lot more detail. There's a lot more contrast, opposed to the objects in the distance have a little bit less detail. And that makes it feel more as it is supposed to be further away. And so contemporary artists, they benefit from all of the things that the classical artists learned and discovered. So really like this artist because of that. I'm seeing a lot of this this transferring of information from the past to the present. Okay, so that is one example by Dima Ribas. Here is another example. What is the difference? 2017, also watercolor, also the same dimensions, 155 times 105 centimeters. And again, we are seeing an example of this contemporary style mixed in with a more classical style. So if you look at what's happening in the foreground, in the snow, and even where the house is, there's a little bit more clarity, especially with some of these branches that are somewhat closer to the viewer. And there's some of that looseness that we enjoy seeing in watercolor. That is so magnificent, that he has such a great amount of control. I don't think I can ever paint like this, even though I studied art. Watercolor, you know, is new to me. But can I do that with oil? Probably not. Yeah, it would probably take a while, but it is so amazing what artists are doing now with watercolor. Do I expect students to make art like this? Of course, we are all learning here. So eventually one of you, or maybe several of you, will push watercolor to a point where you can make your own exhibition out of them. And so something that I'm noticing about art students in general is that, you know, they have a major. So some of us are 2D artists. Some of us are painters. Some of us are into charcoal. Some of us are into different kinds of art media like printmaking. Sometimes we are 3D artists, sculpture, ceramics. Maybe you are a graphic designer. Maybe you are in a different department altogether. Maybe you're in interior design. And so there are so many different directions that you can go when it comes to talking about art and studying the arts. So I'm always curious what direction students are ending up going when it comes to pushing art. And yes, the majority of us, I would say, are comfortable with drawing and painting. I wonder how many of us would actually stick to watercolor and push that as one of our strongest media. So that is another example, and I'll show you guys one more. Guiding Star, also made in watercolor. This one is larger actually, 210 times 155 centimeters, made in 2017. And it looks like the artist is being inspired by things like contemporary television, maybe something that he's seen on TV show, because I'm seeing a figure in the very center. He's pointing up what appears to be a, what is that? That looks like one of those, oh my goodness, flare guns. Yeah, you know, when you need help. And it's the whole like apocalyptic theme with a lot of the contemporary shows now. And so it looks like he's being inspired by something like that. It's kind of interesting how the figure appears a little bit distorted in that it looks larger in scale than what I'm seeing in the overall theme, especially with the trailer. It looks like it's small, but the figure is quite large. There's some really wonderful things going on with watercolor in general. You could see how he treated the rocks. You could see how loose some of that pigment is. Yet when it came to these objects in the foreground, in the closer to the viewer, there's so much really interesting detail. There's even parts of abstraction happening in the lower right-hand corner. And so that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I was gonna make this a really short talk, but I just kind of got into it. And so you guys are going to do dry brush. Wait, dry brush? Yeah, dry brush and masking this week. It'll help in many different ways. So I hope that you guys enjoy this little video. Let me know if you guys have any questions or comments about this artist's work. I really enjoy it. So let's have a nice, productive week, and I hope to hear from you guys again soon.